There are very clear cases for automations and then clear cases for agents. And don't try to force an agent to do something that an automation can do easily.
Welcome to the Talking AI podcast, where we talk AI with both experts in the field and early adopters. I'm your host, Matt Page, and we're here to demystify AI for you so you can get some value from it. Let's talk some AI. If you're even loosely staying up to date in the AI space, you've likely heard of agents, AI automation, and some of the tools being used from Make to N8N to about 100 others. But the tooling and the hyped up terms are only like a small part of the equation. The important part's actually determining what the heck do you automate. But lucky for you, we got Marcus McGehee, the founder of the AI Consulting Lab, here to talk some AI. And we're actually going to show off some live examples today. So make sure you check that part out on YouTube. I've got a lot of good stuff coming. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. But let's start. I just want to start very basic. Like,
Sure.
how do you define automation and agents? I think those are the hyped up terms right now. And I guess too, people understand, I think, what automation is, but why is it different with AI now?
Yeah. I think anyone that is in the space, whether they're doing automation or just AI in general, they're for sure jumping on the buzzword of AI agents. Everybody is using AI agents this year. And I think back in Q4 of last year, we had Salesforce and we had Microsoft and Google. All of them were saying AI agents were going to be the topic for 2025. And for sure it's here. So it's
Whether they manifested that into reality or no, I think it's a bit of both. But
forced manifestation, I think is a good view for that.
Yep.
But any company really that's doing anything in the space, if this more likely that they're using the term just because it's getting more clicks, honestly. I think that's the big thing. But I did a video on this recently about AI agents versus automations. So it's good to think about it this way of an automation is just a sequence of steps, right? You program it ahead of time and then it does the thing. There can be some AI components in there, individual modules like in Make, it's an AI module and it does what you ask it to do, but it's still not really, doesn't have much autonomy. But I like to say with an agent is think about it as a sports field, right? Maybe baseball field or football. We give the team the tools, the plays to run. And then depending on how the defense is set up, they can run the plays in different ways. So same thing goes with agents, right? We can give it an overall objective, right? Here's what you're supposed to do. And here are all the tools that you have. And here's how those tools function. Depending on how the situation comes in with the chat or however you're interacting, use your tools to best do the job that you're supposed to do. And here's your objective. That's, I think, an easy way for people to understand it. It doesn't really go like you're limited to that. So a true AI agent is autonomous and it can do things like OpenAI's operator or Claude's computer use. That really is no bounds. It just has its objective to go and do. But the things like N8N agents and Make agents, they operate within that boundary, right? So if you go take a football player, for example, in this example, and you put him on the middle of the street, it's not going to be the same thing, right? So he's not going to be able to use his tool appropriately and it's going to just be a total failure.
Okay, what's the, oh my gosh, I'm like going back in time to that commercial. Is it Terry Crews, like the office linebacker?
Yes.
I have that like visual coming into my head of him in the office setting and just tackling somebody. But no, that's such a good example. It's so much, the one I lead with is the IVR in back in the day. Like you had to, a call center, you had to define every scenario, if this, then that, every edge case. And if you didn't define it, you're just SOL, right?
No.
But with these systems now, these LLMs and agents, they're probabilistic. So they can, quote unquote, think through a situation based on whatever their goal is and whatnot. But no, I love the football example because it's about them being able to essentially observe whatever scenario they have going on. They have a goal, which in the football analogy, it's to go score, or maybe it's specific to the play they're running. And then they execute it with the tools they have, which is their teammates, football, things like that. But no, that's a good one. I like that.
And it's well, I watched a video the other day of this guy, another creator, smaller creator, but he was talking about differences in AI agents and automations. And it really stuck home because the message was there are clear use cases for automations and there are clear use cases for agents. And just because we have this new agent technology and it's cool and does all these things, it doesn't do, if you have a certain outcome that you want, you should stick to an automation. Myself, this is a prime candidate. Like I have a blog creation and social content repurposing automation. And I made it in
Okay.
Make before agents were a thing. And then I really got fixated on trying to do it with an agent, and it just failed almost every single time. And I wasted a bunch of time trying to get it set up.
Quick break in the pod. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you've been thinking about how to actually use AI inside your business. And that's exactly why we built the AI Opportunity Finder. It's a free tool that helps you uncover high impact, tailored AI use cases based on your business, your goals, your pain points, and your industry. No fluff, no generic use cases, just real ideas that fit your business, and they're ranked by ROI potential. It takes about 3 minutes to run, and it's like having your own personal AI strategist for free. If you want to try it for free, check out the link in the show notes or go to hatchworks.com/AI-opportunity-finder.
So there are very clear cases for automations and then clear cases for agents. And don't try to force an agent to do something that an automation can do easily.
Yeah, it's a great distinction. I think that's the shiny object syndrome. When anything new comes out, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how can I use this cool new
Hmm.
toy when
Hmm.
it's complete overkill half the
Guilty.
time? And
Totally
then
guilty.
also with an LLM, the cost a lot of times can be minuscule, but if it's just a standard automation, it's
Yeah.
a lot of times even cheaper than
Hmm.
that. But that it's a good segue though, because I think the core problem is folks see the shiny tool, the N8N or the Make or name your automation tool. It's, oh, I want that. But they haven't actually thought through, okay, what do you want to automate?
Hmm.
How does your process work today? And you do a lot of this work with your clients thinking through, okay, what do you automate? How do you automate? Where's the opportunity? Where's the pain? Where are the gaps? Talk me through what is your approach there so folks listening can take some of these nuggets and maybe start to apply it in their business.
So the framework that I kind of use for this, it approaches not only automations, but it's also really good for just manual AI assisted GPT stuff too. So
Yeah, let's
I
take a step
look,
back. Let's go all the way back, and because I think that's it. You gotta get to the core. It's not,
yep.
don't jump to the thing first, right?
So when we look at putting AI in our business, if we're not using it right now, or we're just starting to use it
Yeah.
and we're getting familiar with it in our personal lives, and now we want to start using it in our business lives, to look at
Mhm.
what are the things that we do. And I say this all the time. This is something that I repeat so many times to businesses that I talk to and people I work with is look at the tasks that you're doing every single day. What are the
Yeah.
ones that are taking 30 minutes, 45 minutes or more that have a set framework? You always
Yeah.
have to do this step first and this one, then this one. Look for those problems or look for those tasks and then look at the individual steps that are in those tasks. And don't try to look at it and say, all right, well, I do all of this to do one task. And I asked ChatGPT to do it and it totally failed miserably. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's a complex task with a lot of steps. And then you would probably have to go back and forth with it. It's not going to be able to do that. But if you take that and you break it down, can it do 3 of the tasks for the overall 5 task total? It can do that.
Mhm.
Okay, great. You've just taken out 60% of the time that it would spend to take you to do all the menial work, the mundane work to get to those last 2 tasks. That's the first point, right? Figuring out how to break down your tasks into manageable chunks and figuring out
Yeah.
which of those chunks can be handled by AI. That's the number one thing. Then you just
And
take
just to
knowledge.
pause there real quick, because I feel like that sounds like such an easy thing to do. It's, oh, the stuff I do all the time. Let's get that. But I feel like in my own experience, I'm thinking in my head, I don't know what those things are. So I feel like
Mhm.
there's almost this. I was listening to his Alex Hermosi the other day. He was talking through something similar, but not necessarily
Yeah.
automation related. He was just trying to figure out how to optimize his day. And he literally, for a week, like, he broke his day out into 15-minute increments and would just jot down, okay,
Yeah.
what did I do? What did I do? And then what's beautiful is you can take that, feed that into whatever LLM you want and have it identify where the things are. But you almost have to do that like intentional bit to truly find out, okay, where is the repetitive work, the mundane tasks, the things that I really shouldn't have to
Yeah.
do now that we have this awesome new tooling.
Yeah. But so another good point of that. So going with the same thing of your Hormozy example, if you're not, because that's a skill. It's actually one of the things so in my corporate training that I do
Mhm.
2 days, an hour and a half each day. The first day is all about like intro to ChatGPT, generative AI and
Yep.
how it works, crash course of prompt engineering and kind of some of the limitations and do's and don'ts. And then the second day is about more advanced prompt engineering, but more importantly, how to build custom GPTs. And that section and segment particularly talks
Yeah.
about how to break down your tasks into exactly what we're talking about. And it's a skill,
Mhm.
right? It is a very much a learned skill by understanding what the models are capable of. First and
Yeah.
foremost, can it actually do something? I'm pretty good at it now to figure out, somebody asks me to do something or break something down. I can look at the problem and say, all right, I know you need to do these things, and GPT is not going to be
Mhm.
able to do those things, but they
Yeah.
can do this and this, right? But if you're struggling with that, or maybe you just, again, want to leverage the tool, go into one of the language models and say, here's the task. Here's what I normally do to do this task. Help me identify what are the areas of opportunity, or how can I break this down further into tasks that a language model could do reliably every single time.
Yes.
That's a
Yep.
great way to do it, right? And then you can take it from there and go a step further, or maybe just not have your expectations so high. If we're looking at trying to cut down the total amount of tasks that we do in
Mhm.
a set number, maybe it's not that, but maybe it even goes a level deeper, like Inception, LLM Inception, right? Of these 5 tasks, can ChatGPT do 60 or 70% of each one of those tasks? And then I only have to do
Yeah.
the little bit afterwards. So there's a couple of ways I think you can approach that
Yeah.
situation.
The
And then
human in the loop there, yeah.
yeah. And then that carries over to your automations, right? So as soon as you figure out
Mhm.
what those are, that's the basis for then putting it in your automations.
Yeah, and I think too, the point you mentioned a second ago, and it is a learned skill, but I think most things can be improved
Hmm.
with an LLM and AI, but
For
the
sure.
key thing is you gotta break it down to the right molecular level in a sense. Because if you're trying to have it do too much,
Right.
it probably is gonna fail. That's such an important piece, and then you add the element of the AI's ability to reason. I think that adds a whole nother capability in a sense. And obviously we'll get to it, the automation and access to tools and now it can actually do some things. But like the custom GPTs, I feel like that's such a great gateway into this because it's almost like a lightweight proof of
Hmm.
concepting tool to help automate a task. It's like this buddy that specializes at this thing that has context for what you're trying to do and it can help you with it.
Yeah. Like custom GPTs are probably the lowest hanging fruit for anybody that wants to
Yeah.
adopt AI in their business, exactly just because of what you said, right? It is the low code, no code really solution to
Yeah.
building an MVP that can deliver immediate return on investment. And if you look at that and define it as time saved or more efficiency
Mhm.
doing a specific type of project, that's your ROI. I have a client that she's on TikTok now. She owns an immigration attorney firm in Arizona.
Mhm.
And we worked with her at the beginning of last year to set up a system inside of Microsoft Copilot. But essentially, it was more or less a set of custom
Yeah.
GPTs, and their main task that they do is writing a draft declaration for immigrants to present for their court case. They told me that the process to write it, the actual writing process, was around 9 hours or so. And so we developed these custom GPTs that did a particular part of each one of their frameworks. So they had 6 parts to their framework for this.
Yeah.
And I developed one for each one of those. And going down the line, putting in the transcript of the meeting with the client and the notes and things like that in the hands of their most capable drafter, she was able to take that process down to 45 minutes. So 9 hours to 45 minutes is a huge jump in time saving. And it's
Yeah.
all just really a custom GPT, honestly.
What's your take here? Because I feel like when custom GPTs came out, I was just like, "Oh my god, this is the thing that's
Hmm.
just gonna change everything." And I feel like it just did not become a major focus to continue building it out by OpenAI because they have so many other things. Like, I feel like there's so much further they could take it, but I just feel like they haven't. I feel like it hasn't been a priority for them. Like, as it is today is very functional, but and I could be wrong, but I feel like they haven't added additional functionality to the custom GPTs past, like, the initial rollout.
I would agree with that. I think that it still serve a very valuable purpose to get people
Definitely, yeah, it
familiar
still does.
with, yeah,
Yeah,
with that process of building a specialized assistant with special knowledge, and then also the ability to connect third parties with the actions. But
yeah.
I don't think that they really took it further than that.
Like,
Agree
you
with
could see
that.
a world where they almost go into the true almost like encroaching in on the innate in
Mhm, mhm.
space, but then they have the operator too, which is the browser tool. I don't know, it's just kinda interesting, like, strategically where they focus their time and their product
Yeah.
roadmap. And then there's curious too, like projects. Do you play with those at all? Because I feel like those have some overlap in a sense, because you can add context to
Yeah.
those So just, I know we're going deep into Chat GPT, but I like to nerd out on this sometimes. Do you use those at all? And how do you differentiate
So
between those and custom GPTs?
yeah, I think the biggest thing with OpenAI specifically is that they have a problem with their product ecosystem. And they just hired
Oh,
a new
it's a
CEO
mess.
for that. It was actually, was it this week or last week? They hired a new CEO for product specific.
Did they
And
really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah, it was the person used to be CEO of Facebook's video gaming and like the Facebook app itself. So they brought
Okay.
her on in a CEO position. So it's two CEOs, but it's CEO of applications, I believe. I listened to this on one of the podcasts this morning, so it's still fresh in my mind, but I
Yeah.
think that's the point. They know they have a problem with branding in terms of the model picker confusion mess. They know
Yeah, it's
that.
4003,
Yeah.
4.1, and
Yeah.
it's okay. We've gone backwards in numbers, but it's a better model. And yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
there
some
was
sense.
again, another small person, creator on Twitter, actually X, however you want to phrase it. If this was just like random to see this, but they were just tweeted maybe OpenAI or one of the product managers or somebody at OpenAI and said, "You guys have a problem with this. It's so
Mm,
confusing. The model picker is terrible. What do we use?" And one of the
yeah.
like management level executives or responded to that tweet and they were like, we know, we're working on it. So they're aware of the
Yeah.
problem that they have an issue with that. Sam is too. I think either Sam or Greg Brockman talked about the model picker and how they want to make it easier. So they know they're working on it.
Mhm.
But the projects and the custom GPTs, I think it's just by nature, they came out after each other. I think that honestly, think
Yeah.
that they should go together. I think that they should just roll those two in together
I like that. Yeah.
because you can't change the models in custom GPTs. That's a big
I think that's
drawback.
the biggest flaw to
Mhm.
chat custom GPTs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the limit on files to 20, I don't really get that, especially when you go into the developer
Yeah.
platform and the assistance API can let you do 10,000 file attachments.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal with that is either. And on the other side of that, it does really good with your instructions and your knowledge, but on projects, doesn't do so good with the instructions and the knowledge,
Mhm.
but gives you the
Yep.
ability to choose the models, right? And
Yeah.
so just combine those together. For me right now, honestly, I just use projects as a folder organization system. So working with clients,
Yeah.
whatever else, putting chats where I know if I have to go do new chats all the
That's
time or
smart.
go back to them, I'm just going to create a project folder and put it there. No
Yeah.
instructions,
Yeah.
very little. I might put some instructions there. I might put some knowledge, but for the most time, it's really just an organization system.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for the derailment there,
Right.
everybody, but I had to go deep on the OpenAI. But yeah, let's actually do this. So we've talked a little bit about the automation. Let's just
Mhm.
pull one up live. I think you got one in N8N.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. I think it's just a good, simple example for people to visualize what this is actually doing. And then I hopefully it'll get your wheels turning a bit in terms of the art of the possible, in terms of what you can do. So talk to me about this. I have no clue what I'm even looking at, and I've never heard. And what did you call it? N8N or Nathan? That's my
I
first
call it
question.
N8N. What's the actual name for it?
Yeah, I've heard people call it both. I've always called it N8N, but I've heard people call it Nathan. Almost, it's like Nathan,
I
the
think
human name. I don't know.
the tech industry needs to leverage their tech better to come up with good names that people understand. That's one
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
takeaways here.
There you go.
So this is just a pretty simple agent, right? This is a friend of mine. He's also here. Hopefully he'll see this video, but he asked me to put together an agent to help his company. They import charcoal. They're based in the UAE and
Cool.
they want to just basically take a look at their sales and keep track of how their sales are doing. So plugging it into their data with their reports and being able to get insights on that and forecasting. And he also said, I wanted to be able to do some competitor research. So what are my
Mhm.
competitors doing? Like, how can what's the social monitoring of them and what are they doing on social and things like that. And of course, the ability to communicate that with external people, whether that's the partners or any clients or anything like that, having a mail module. So that's essentially what this is. I love
Mhm.
N8N. I'm actually pretty relatively new to it. Like I had played around with it a little bit in the beginning or Q4 of last year, but it's pretty pricey comparative to Zapier and Make. So I
Mhm.
didn't mess with it too much. And then your video, I'm pretty sure it was yours, I learned that you can self-host it. And after that, it was all right, I'm off to the races now. Self-hosted, no limit on the number of workflows or executions you can do. So let's just start building. Yeah, it's just a simple chat here. You can embed this on your site, call it as a webhook, whatever else, and it goes to the agent. You open the agent up and you can set your system assistant message just as if you would any other AI module in a Make Automation or Zapier or things like that. And then you set your
And this
prompt.
is such an important step too. Like it's the whole concept of prompt
Mhm.
engineering. I've gone back and forth where people call it a career. I think it's just a skill that
It's
people
a
are going
skill
to
now.
have,
Yeah.
but it's so critical. And I think it gets overlooked a lot in the building process because this is where you can really fine tune and hone in what you want
Mhm.
the thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The system assistant message is the number one thing. And again, yeah, you're totally right on the prompt engineering stuff. People thought it was going to be the next career, and then it turned into it's important, very important. But as
It's
the
like typing and Googling and
right,
using
right,
Excel
you,
and whatnot.
you
It's just,
totally
yeah,
have to be able to do that now. It's just
yeah.
a basic necessity. And also too, the frontier model companies, Claude, they have their prompt generator. I love that. I use it so often.
All
And
that yesterday. I have not tried that yet. So it
in the
like helps you
console,
optimize.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
console, you can create it from scratch or have it optimize it. If I have to come up with a prompt, almost 8 times out of 10, I'm going there first and just putting it in there
Yeah.
and tweaking it
That's good.
from behind. But that's where the prompt engineering comes into play, right? Because if you have a specific goal, these prompt generators are not going to know your specific goal. So you have to go in and be able to diagnose, okay, I don't need this part and let me change this one.
Mhm.
And even then, once you've got something like this, you start testing it and you find that it's not doing exactly what you
Yep.
want it to be. So you have to figure out what part of the prompt do I need to change? And if I
Yep.
change this, does it impact the rest of the prompt and all this other stuff? So there's a ton of stuff that
You
goes
gotta
into
go
that.
through that process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to pause there too, I know I keep going down rabbit holes, but this is another thing if you're new or you just feel like you're not getting a lot of value in AI and whatever, Claude, doesn't matter. It's people think of prompting and using it like a new form of Googling, which it's not.
Mhm.
It's completely different. I think the example you just gave, it's like these meta use cases of I'm actually talking with AI to
Mhm.
help me create a better, more refined prompt that I'm going to use for AI. It's things like that. I use it so much just in the brainstorming to the outlining to whatever the next phase is, that iterative approach. I think that's really important for people to start learning that skill, building that muscle.
Yeah. Absolutely. For sure. Because, like, again, my proficiency came from just doing, man. I got access to
Yep.
ChatGPT right around when it first came out. And I was writing a course for digital marketing to teach. I was putting it together an offer for that was based off high level to put it to mental health professionals. And I was
Yeah.
combining all of my digital marketing knowledge into one to teach them how to market their business so they could use the tool effectively. ChatGPT came out and I just like everything. I just started running it through there. There was no guidelines on how to prompt, what you could and couldn't do. And I just started talking to it like it was a person. And can you do this? Can you do that? Okay, give me this. But actually, no, I don't like the way you wrote that. Write it in this way and change this information.
Mhm.
And it just through that process, I started doing that for everything. And that's
Yeah,
how I
me
got
too.
to be so good at this whole industry, right? Was just that process of doing every single task for myself and my clients in ChatGPT. And just there was nothing that it couldn't do in my mind until I totally exhausted all the ways to try to do it. And then I figured out, all right, it can't do this part. But I learned a lot along the way, right? Or just learn by doing, just go talk to it, figure out, and then ask follow ups. How could I improve this prompt? Or what could be better
Mhm.
on the back end? Did that this morning. Right before we jumped on here, I finished editing a video talking about using creator search insights in ChatGPT to grow your TikTok. And at the end, I wrote the prompt myself. And at the end of it, I was like, what else could I have improved in that prompt? And it actually gave me two good suggestions that I did include in the new prompt. So definitely recommend doing that for
Yep.
sure too.
Hell, I did it for this podcast. We do a prep call before we do these. I fed the
Mhm.
transcript into OpenAI. I gave it context for what I was doing. I say, hey, create some structure around this podcast.
Yep.
Give me some high level questions to focus in on. It's just like little things like that. It just, yeah. All right, let's
Yeah.
get back to the
Yeah,
automation.
yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, the simple setup of this, you set your agent module, you put just a
Mhm.
message telling it what its objective and goal is. And then also, not only that, telling it what tools it has access to. So Gmail, Google Sheets,
Yep.
Perplexity, and the internal database. So it knows what these things are and how to use them. And essentially, you go do your things now. So we've just got some 3 Google Sheets here, which has the
And zoom in real quick a little bit if you can, because you can see these 3 nodes below the agent, right? So you have chat model. So that's where
Mhm.
you've connected to OpenAI, the chat model. You have memory, so it can retain context for what it's doing. And then, like you were just saying, tools, that's where you can add a bunch of different things, which now it has those at their disposal. So that's exactly what you're just saying. Those are the connectors, the plumbing for this.
yeah. And on top of this too, you put in a description of it. So it knows what the LLM should
Yep.
do with this specific thing. And that's really important too, because if you have tools, let's just say that these are not all the same Google Sheet module, or maybe it's a different Gmail module, that you need
Yeah.
to make sure if it's to read a sheet or to update a sheet to have a really specific description of that. This tool is used to update records. This tool is used
Mm,
to read records. So that way it doesn't have to get, like there's less chance of it getting confused on what tool it
yep.
should use and when. So be sure you're putting a good description in there. That's another key important point.
Nice.
But yeah, this is simple, right? If you think about this for your own business, if you're looking at this from a business owner perspective, you've got your research tool, you've got your data, internal data, whether that's
Mhm.
finance or fees or whatever it's going to be. Look at that as this set of modules. And then you've got your communication tools, whether it's Gmail or Microsoft. You can read emails, send emails, draft new ones, whatever. And then from there, the sky's the limit, right? You could add in modules for your CRM. So I'm a high level person. And if you
Mhm.
wanted to have all of your high level stuff here, you could do create a contact, opportunity, tasks, things like
Yep.
that, and
Yep.
directly update your CRM from this agent. So I'm going to get rid of this because it will mess it up. But yeah, this is just real simple. So the whole goal for this agent was to be able to have a glimpse into financial performance, how things are doing, to get a view into the competitor search insights and what they're doing with some specific
Mhm.
competitors, and then to be able to communicate those reports back to anyone else to say, what were the sales year over year?
That's such a good use case too, because I used to do a lot of competitive research and whatnot, just on the product side and things. And it takes a lot of time to actually
Mhm.
go out there and do the research. And now you have something that like, well, it's already done. I see lots of green check marks. It's crazy how fast this can work compared to a human doing it. And like you said, this chat could be embedded in any website, web app, application, whatever, or it could be voice, multimodal in that context. So you can do it in a multitude of ways as well, which is really cool.
And like another huge thing here is that NAN actually can be a little technically intimidating. When I first got in here
Yeah.
compared to the other two, I was a little lost, and I'm pretty proficient at this stuff now. But just getting to the point of doing things and learning on YouTube and stuff like that, once you get it,
Yep.
it starts to really click. But
Yeah.
after that, once you've gotten to that point, really easy to build agentic solutions with hardly any technical experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that is a really big use case. So yeah,
Yep.
just do some competitive insight into the competition for what they're doing
Yeah.
for promotions or
Yeah.
sales. Here's an overview of the current promotions in the 2025 industry, integrated marketing channels, some specific competitor activities, and it's looking for some of these specific ones that they had said they wanted to
Mhm.
monitor on the web, and recommendations for things like this too. Probably not a great example use case, but this was really spun up for a proof of concept and just to show how it works. But the sky's the limit really when you want to do this stuff in
Yeah.
full production.
That's the thing with that. I'm with you there. It's like it can do so many things, but it's also hard to get started. So it's like a pro and a con at the same time. But this is the one thing too, back to like how you approach things with AI. And this, like the Shopify CEO said, you got to have a reflexive use of AI. If you get stuck, literally just go ask Claude or OpenAI
Yeah.
or ChatGPT. It doesn't matter. And it can help you work through it.
All
No
right, just
matter the
totally yeah.
complexity, really.
To shoot me an email and it generated that email. Here it is. Here
Nice.
it is.
Yes, that's like a
2012.
good example of the tooling right there. So now it's got yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
great.
Month over month competitor sales analysis. And this email can be whatever you want it to be, right? Or it can be
Yeah.
send it to a client. Just all you have to do is provide the address to it and it's off to the races.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Thanks for walking through
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
example, what's your take on I know that was N8N. Have you tried other ones? Is N8N the leading one right now for you? What's your take on the different
Yeah.
tools out there?
I would say for me, particularly, yeah, NAN is the leader just because Zapier has always been price prohibitive for me. Not that it's super
Same, yep.
expensive, but it is, I think, one of the more pricey ones. Definitely is easier and has more connections. So it's more friendly for the average user. I have been a heavy make user for pretty much for a few years now, at least. So that has been my primary platform, but now has since moved to N8N because of the self hosting. I would say that Make does, they just launched their agent feature,
I saw that, yeah.
probably like within the last month or so, I think. Have not, in light of that, I have not actually gone in and done anything in there because of how easy this one is. I just find this to be so
Yeah.
easy and much simpler to configure. I don't know if that's the right way. So maybe I don't have enough experience with Make to make that determination, but in my opinion, I feel like it's a little bit simpler and easier to operate.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast stuff is moving and one person gets one feature and then
Mhm.
the competitor follows up and has their version of it. But last thing I want to hit on, so you do a lot of like you mentioned earlier, kind of training around AI and things like that. Like where do you see most companies either going wrong when they attempt to start incorporating AI into their business, or where do they have false starts, or
Yep.
what's like the gap? Because I think
Mhm.
that's the most under appreciated thing is like the actual human component of it, almost like the change management, the people need to know how to actually leverage it. It's not just about, hey, we gave our whole team access to these
Yeah.
10 tools.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Marketing Artificial Intelligence podcast. I've been listening to them for probably, I don't know, since probably 2022 or so. We thought, I think, very similar thought patterns, and I have a lot of
Mhm.
shared ideas with those guys. And one of those shared ideas is the concept of big companies, like big and small, but big companies buying 1,000 Copilot licenses and
Yeah.
doing nothing with it. Here, we just bought you Copilot. It's this great new tool. Go and use it. And there's no
Yeah.
training. They're just fending
Yeah.
for yourself. And then 6 months down the road, nobody's using it because Copilot's a little tricky to use. Let's be honest. It's not
Mhm.
ChatGPT. And nobody's using it, or the people that have used it, they're not really using it effectively. That's the number one thing, is to buy a tool or to buy a solution and provide no training whatsoever on it. And I would even go so far, maybe this is a little bias creeping in, but to go further than an online course or just a guide. Here's the tool, here is the training for it, the guide. Bring somebody, hire somebody to do it, because a lot of people, especially in a corporate environment, they're not really going to do much initiative. They're not going to show a lot of initiative
Yeah.
because a lot of people in corporate America are overworked. They're doing a lot of ton of tasks that they're not getting paid for. And they're like, oh, why should I learn this? But there are going to be some people that do want to do that. So there's not going to be a ton of folks that will go and say, all right, well, I'm going to go learn this training and then 10x my output and I'm going to bump my salary up or whatever it's going to be, because they're a little jaded. But instead of
Yes. Yeah.
going that way, bring somebody in to do the training, because one of the things that I think our competitive advantage is that I take the time to meet with people ahead of time to understand
Mhm.
what are their teams doing? What are some of the tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis, just like we talked about earlier. And I'm using those and putting them in the training to say, all right, here we go. We're going to do some exercises. I just gave you 15 or 20 minutes of education, of lecture of this part. Now let me show you how it works. And we jump in, and then they start to see that I'm actually doing their job that they do on multiple times a week. And then people really lock in and they're like, oh, wait, hang on. I do this. It takes me forever to do this and I hate doing it. And he's doing it with AI. I'm paying attention. So
Yes.
kind of the whole point is, the big mistake is buying tools with no training, and then, or buying tools with just written training or online training. Go the extra step and actually bring somebody in to teach your team how to do the things that you guys do on a daily basis using AI. So there's less of a gap, cutting your knowledge and your ignorance gap down by seeing, learning, and looking at somebody doing what you actually do. I think it's like a winning formula for success.
Yeah, it's funny. We even have these personas we've started to notice. I'm just going to share this real quick. We had a longer list, but we shortened it down for a training we were doing the other day. But there's these, I'm sure you'll recognize some of these. There's like the job security jitters, like the core fear
Yeah.
that AI will replace them, the overwhelm, like just non-starters. I don't even know where to start.
Mhm.
The trust skeptics, like misincentivized performers, like the
Yep.
KPIs are not driven to it. Change
Spot on.
fatigue veterans, they've seen digital
Mhm.
transformation a million times. This is the other thing. I'm good. I'm not going to touch it.
Yep.
Data guardians. There's even those folks that are like, we had a few others. There's one around, there's some people that do adopt it. They automate their job and they're just on autopilot too. It's like,
Mhm.
I think there's a new form of, call it like quiet quitting or something. They're just using AI to do it
Yeah.
instead.
These are spot on. Those are awesome. Really great. And the last one, the data guard.
ChatGPT helps with them.
Hey, the last one is the data. That's one of the biggest ones. And I
Yeah.
did a workshop last week and I'm doing another one next week. And one of the things that I have to harp in on, because it also coincides with two projects I'm doing right now, your data has to be good. If you don't have it, or if you don't have access to it, to what you just said, like
Yep.
this job is going to become so much more difficult because the language model doesn't have what it needs to do its job effectively. And
Mhm.
so that means you need to have easy access. This business is, they're using their document management system in a system that you can make API requests to it, but it won't actually return the content of the document. So it'll just give you the
Mhm.
metadata about the document. So essentially useless. And we're having to do a workaround for that, which would be so much easier if we could just call directly and get the data back. That's perfect. Version control is another thing behind that. So if you update those documents, you have to make sure your AI, knowledge store, wherever it's at, that stays up to date too. And not only that, but make sure that it fully deletes it and then replaces it with the new content. So you don't have duplicates, versions 1 through 5,
Mhm.
that's pulling incorrect information. And just overall having it cleanly categorized. So it can take tons and tons of data. One of the other client projects I had, there was probably 3,000 pages of data or even more, maybe 3,000 documents individually. And I asked it what a question and it put an answer out just like that. But sometimes it can struggle and give you the wrong answer. But if you have it in
Yeah.
separate buckets of, okay, this is this type of data, it handles questions about HR and SOPs. This one is our financial
Mhm.
data. This one is our operations and our products. So group it together. That way you can then say, all right, Mr. Agent in N8N, you have access to all these data buckets. This data bucket
Yeah.
is to handle questions about finances, and you can just educate it more. So organization of data is another big thing too, for sure.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's at its core, that's the foundation for everything
Yeah.
in AI. And when we say context is king, that's what we mean by that, right?
Mhm.
That's data. Data is context. And you got to give AI context if you want a good output.
Yep.
But no, that's a good spot to stop. Thanks for being out here to talk some AI. Where can folks find you? I know you're on several kind of
Yep.
platforms and maybe where to find your company as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So all the socials are the same. It's at the AIconsultinglab.com. So THE AI Consulting Lab. Same thing goes for the website too. It's the AIconsultinglab.com. Made it simple. Actually, did I say for the socials? Did I put the .com part? Because it's just the AI Consulting Lab. So the social part,
Yeah.
find me on socials at the AI Consulting Lab, THEAI Consulting Lab. The website, theaiconsultinglab.com.
Nice. And we'll throw those in the show notes. Awesome. Thanks for being on today, Marcus.
Thanks for having me, man. Keep it up. Looking forward to learning some more content, especially related to Lovable and AI app building platforms. I'm loving that.
Yes, yes, definitely. All right, man. Thanks for listening to the Talking AI podcast. If you enjoyed the show, give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to leave us a review. We love those. For more info on Talking AI, visit talkingaipodcast.com. The single biggest mistake we see companies make with AI is they don't properly train their teams. We see it all the time. Companies roll out AI tools and expect people to just figure it out. But using AI effectively requires a totally different mindset and skill set. And that's exactly why we built training for every level of your org, from AI training for teams and executives to training engineering teams on our generative driven development methodology. Or if you've already identified your AI use cases and want to just prioritize where to start, we offer an AI roadmap and ROI workshop to help you build a clear plan. It's all about going from we should use AI to actually driving real value with it. Head over to hatchworks.com to learn more.